Hello and welcome to Cultural Apologists React. For today, September 28th, 2024. This is an AI-generated podcast based directly on the writings of the Christian cultural apologists discussed. But like all AI, it can make mistakes. In the news today, protests outside the luxury Loews Regency Hotel on Park Avenue in New York City's Manhattan borough were held against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech at the United Nations General Assembly. The protests, which included approximately 24 people, called for Netanyahu to either negotiate a hostage deal or resign. One of the protesters, Yehuda Cohen, was present because his son, Nimrod, has been kidnapped by Hamas and is being held as a hostage. Cohen demanded that Netanyahu take action to secure his son's release. Another protester, Edith Hertzberg, expressed similar sentiments, stating that she wants the hostages to be brought home at any cost. As Netanyahu delivered his speech at the UN on Friday, several diplomats walked out in protest. In addition to protests against Netanyahu, other groups, such as supporters of embattled Pakistani politician Imran Khan and the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, also demonstrated outside the UN. Meanwhile, tensions continued to escalate between Israel and Lebanon after a wave of Israeli strikes in Beirut on Friday killed at least 6 people and wounded 91 others. The Israeli military confirmed it was conducting targeted strikes against Hezbollah weapons stored beneath civilian buildings. Commentary: in the maelstrom of the Israel-Palestine conflict, it's easy to lose sight of the underlying truth, that this crisis is not merely a clash of titans, but a reflection of our own moral bankruptcy. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer so perspicaciously noted in The Cost of Discipleship, true obedience is not just an external gesture, but a profound inner surrender, one that requires us to confront the darkness within ourselves and to act with courage and conviction. Consider the recent protests outside the UN, where demonstrators demanded action from Netanyahu to secure the release of hostages. What lies at the heart of these protests, I ask you? Is it not a desperate cry for accountability, for someone to take responsibility and act with integrity? But who among us is truly willing to bear that weight, to risk everything in the pursuit of justice? Bonhoeffer's words come back to haunt us. The ultimate test of obedience is not outward conformity, but inward surrender. It's a piercing reminder that we've been conditioned to prioritize expediency over principle, to sacrifice our values on the altar of convenience. We're so busy posturing for the cameras and virtue signaling online that we've lost sight of what truly matters, standing up for what's right, even when it hurts. The recent Israeli strikes in Beirut, which killed at least 6 people and wounded 91 others, serve as a searing indictment of our moral failing. As I read Bonhoeffer's words on the importance of advocating for those who are marginalized or oppressed, I'm struck by how little we've learned from history. We continue to condone, even celebrate, leaders who prioritize power over people, who use might to silence the vulnerable. But what if we turned this script on its head? What if we began to see ourselves not as passive observers, but as active participants in the conflict? As Bonhoeffer's experiences with Nazism teach us, true courage requires standing up against injustice, even when it means risking everything. It demands a willingness to challenge our own assumptions and biases, to confront the shadows within ourselves. The crisis in the Middle East is not just about politics. It's about our collective failure to live up to our highest selves. We've become so skilled at pointing fingers that we've forgotten how to point ourselves towards justice, towards true obedience. As Bonhoeffer wrote in Letters and Papers from Prison, the Church's greatest failure has been its inability to provide clear and courageous leadership, especially in times of crisis. In this sense, the Middle East crisis is a mirror held up to our own souls. It's an invitation to confront our complicity in perpetuating suffering, to take responsibility for our actions and inactions, and to stand up with courage and conviction. Will we answer that call, or will we continue to hide behind our screens, too afraid to be the change we wish to see? The stakes are higher than ever, not just for the people of Israel and Palestine, but for us all. We have a choice to make. Will we succumb to the noise of politics or rise up with obedience, with courage, and with compassion? The world is waiting. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Cultural Apologists React. Be sure to come back tomorrow for a new take on the day's news from the standpoint of Christian cultural apologetics.